Mananasitos, buenas and good morning, colleagues. We're back from recess. We are continuing today on the second reading. We will begin with Bill number 321-37LS. This is an appropriations bill, so we will go into the Committee of the Whole to be chaired by the Chairman of Appropriations, Senator San Augustine. And I'd ask Sergeant Barnes to swear in the panel. So we're resolved into the Committee of the Whole.
Committee of the Whole is called to order. At this point, I'd ask the panelist members to please rise to be sworn in by the Sergeant Arm.
Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair, on oath, you may proceed.
Thank you very much. Materials for the Committee of the Whole are in the shared session Google Drive folder labeled Committee of the Whole, Bill number 321-37 LS, as amended by the Committee on General Government Operation and Appropriation. Proposed amendments must be submitted in writing to the clerks via email, sessiondrive@guamlegislature.org. Amendments not in writing will be called out of order. Please, colleagues, let's just follow the rules. Rules of engagement, we may have up to 3 rounds for discussion. We will begin with 1 round of questions for the panel, with each senator allotted 5 minutes for questions, not including responses. And if a second round is needed for questions, we will entertain it. Otherwise, we will dismiss the panel and proceed to the amendment and comments to the bill. Time to speak may not be used from more than one member to another. A member who used a member's time on a question use all that member's time on that question and may not speak, even if all the time used was not used. Questions shall be confined to the substance or nature of Bill 321. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Por favor, let's keep this cordial, okay? Any violation of the general rule of conduct will be called out of order and may result in removal from the hall. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted from the room. After the complete discussion of the bill, I will allow the sponsor to close and I will entertain a motion for the recommendation of the Committee of the Whole, followed by a motion to rise from the Committee of the Whole, at which time I will report out the bill as recommended by the Committee of the Whole. With that, I'd like to ask that we recognize each panel member. To my right, immediate right, we have Lester Carlson from the Department of BBMR. He's the director. We also have Director Vince Ariola from the Department of Public Works. To my far left, we have Superintendent Dr. Eric Swanson, and then followed by Valencia, correction, from the Office of Finance and Budgeting. And we have Steve Guerrero, the director. With that, I'd ask the author of the bill 321 to go ahead and make his introduction of his bill, and then we'll begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to place Bill 321 as amended to the Committee on General Government Operations Appropriations, sponsored by myself, Roy A.B. Kanata, and the co-sponsored by Senators Joe San Augustine, Chris Barnett, Amanda L. Shelton, Tomas J. Fisher, William A. Parkinson, Dwayne T. D. Nicholas, Tina Rose Munoz-Barnes, and Jesse A. Lujan, an act to appropriate the sum of $7 million from the fiscal year 2024 general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 37-42 as amended to the Guam Department of Education to cover costs associated with the rebuilding of Simon A. Sanchez High School campus and the leasing of a temporary campus into the third reading file, and I wish to speak on it. Bill 321 is a critical piece of legislation aimed at addressing the urgent needs of Simon A. Sanchez High School. This proposed bill will appropriate $7 million from the unappropriated excess revenues of FY 2024 general fund revenues to the Guam Department of Education. These funds will support reconstruction of Simon A. Sanchez High School campus and cover the costs associated with leasing a temporary campus. This measure will ensure funding exists to support the following government cost shared to lease the temporary campus for Simon A. Sanchez High School: retention of a construction manager, purchase campus supplies and equipment, infrastructure development, utilities and maintenance, and any other related costs that Department of Education should see fit. Our goal is clear: to provide a safe and conducive learning environment for our students, and these funds will directly support this effort. I look forward to the discussion that we have on this bill, and I ask for my colleagues' continued support for the GIGO campus. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Before we start the first round, Mr. Carlson asked to give a comment before we begin the questions. Mr. Carlson.
Thank you, sir. I would hope that the body has a copy of the fiscal note for Bill 321. We submitted it July 19th. I'd like to reference some of the comments that we made at that time and give you a little update, things that have transpired since. The fiscal note basically starts out that understanding the intent of Bill 321, and we asked for comment from DOE a couple times to aid in our preparation for the fiscal note, but we didn't get any input. But we do quote something I think everybody here is aware of. There was an article that was written on June 22nd and published on the Guam Daily Post, and it spoke about DOE approaching the Recovery Office and trying to advance FEMA assistance for the temporary facility for Simon Sanchez. That has been an active discussion for months with FEMA. I understand that this week there is a meeting that's supposed to be scheduled to come to some kind of level of approval from FEMA. There's three options. One was to rebuild the school on its present site. I understand that that doesn't have much traction. There was another idea about leasing Guam Housing Corporation adjacent property and bringing in temporary classrooms. That also had like a host of other issues like foundation work, sewer hookup, all that stuff. Again, not much traction. However, the third option, the subject of the bill today, seems to be where we're all headed, which is securing a temporary facility for the students of Simon Sanchez. And hopefully this week we will get the green light and get FEMA approval, and there will be a 90-10 cost share. We're talking about $25 million. So the local cost share would be $2.5 million. And there's a report that, in addition to the fiscal note, that the legislature receives every month, and it's the Typhoon Malware expenditure report. The last report that we have submitted to you guys is as of August 31st, and we still show $33 million in available funding to be able to use specifically for the 10% local match. When I spoke with Senator Kanata Friday, because I wasn't able to be here Friday, so I asked if we could do this today. He's aware of the fact that there's a FEMA match potential, and I think it's a good potential. The use of the funding that is a subject of the bill is probably still necessary, because there might be things that we don't foresee, but we have a layout of how that building is going to be retrofitted, and we have a cost breakdown. It's going to be like a combination of 83 offices / classrooms. There'll be 2 separate cafeterias, a nurse's station, a small gym, recreational space, certainly not a field house size, administrative offices, adequate restrooms and showers, first floor accessibility with controlled entry and exits. It'll be AD compatible, of course. And the amount that we're looking at is $12 million for the initial build out, and occupancy with the owner doing the build out. So we facilitate the procurement. Yeah. And then Senator Barnett asked if I'm talking about the Tumon Mall, and the answer is yes. Estimated $1.50 a square foot. The mall is 90,446 square feet, and the common area and parking is included. What that boils down to is about $136,000 a month, $1.6 million a year, and over the term of the 3 years that the temporary facility will be envisioned to be necessary, the rental cost will be about $4,884,000 and change.
Excuse me, sorry, point of inquiry, Mr. Chair. Are we able to get the documents that Mr. Carlson is reading from, or is this just off the top of his head based on the negotiations?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
He said he'll provide. We'll make copies of it. Continue, Mr. Carlson.
so the CRER that we provided, the latest one, the net unobligated projected FY24 general fund balance is $37,939,128. But the body passed a couple of measures recently. One for Parks and Rec at $5 million, and another for GMH/DOA that was $2,465,000. So you take a look at the last CRER that we gave you. We don't have included those recent bills that the body passed and the governor signed into law. So you need to subtract $7,465,801 from the number that's here in the CRER. The net is $30,473,327. So that's just a little color that I thought would be appropriate to provide to the body. I'm hopeful that FEMA will approve of the temporary facility request. And I will remind everybody that the $2.5 million local match can certainly be taken from the available balance in the legislatively mandated Malware account because it's FEMA eligible.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. Sorry to interrupt, Lester. Good morning. Can you please repeat that again for us because I didn't hear it very well.
Which part?
Just the last 3 sentences that you were saying, what you were explaining before you lift up the documents. Thank you.
Yeah. So this is a report from DOA to the legislature every month on Typhoon Malware expenditures. The available balance as of August 31st is in excess of $33 million. So should FEMA approve of the temporary facility for Simon Sanchez, the $2.5 million local match can certainly come from this account. Yes.
Okay, that she basically identified a funding source. Okay. The requirement to fund the 10%, if FEMA approves, can be drawn from the Malware account that's available. Okay? All right, and now, are you done, Mr. Carter? If you're done, then we're going to go ahead and start the round. Huh? On what Mr. Carlson mentioned? Okay. Okay, Dr. Swanson, would you like to tell us about the temporary campus based on the bill? So we can hear from you, and then we'll start the round. Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, if Mr. Swanson can verify the funding sources that he talks about is an attempt to move forward with the temporary
Well-
as well as,
We'll let him open
Yeah.
up on his site because
Okay.
this is BBMR.
right,
Now that's DOE,
okay,
and then we'll end there,
and
and
so,
then we'll start the rounds, okay?
thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so no questions from my colleagues. Let them explain, and then we'll just start. If you want a copy of whatever they're reading from, then that I'll allow. Other than that, we need to start the round. Okay, Dr. Swanson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, to be at all eligible for FEMA support in this project, we have to use local funds. So there were a number of folks that speculated that we could somehow use our money to do that, and the federal cannot reimburse federal, so that's off the table. We looked at the two more viable projects, the one being with Guam Housing and the other one being the rental of a facility. And I have to remind the body that neither of these projects have gone out for procurement. And in the procurement process, my understanding there's more than one entity interested in the lease facility. So that process has to be accomplished. For us to do that, to put that out on a bid situation, we've got to have the cash to back our share and then some. The way that I'm looking at this, just the math on it, if we're looking at the Guam Housing Project, we had an engineer come in and estimate the site preparation cost. That's just shy of $2 million. And then the procurement of the portable classrooms was estimated at 17.5. So we're up in the $18 million range, $18 to $20 million. And then our cost share would be the minimum of 1.8 up to 2 million, a little more. The other piece of that is, in this language in the legislation, also understand that that includes equipping the school with all the furniture that goes in it, and that's not an inexpensive piece. For the lease facility, I agree with the estimate of $25 million. Then if you're calculating out the cost of leasing over the period of 3 to 4 years, that should be included in this process as well. I would like to be sure that we could retain the funds to pick up the cost of the things that are related to servicing a campus on site, equipping it, and then carrying over into supporting what's going to be moved into the new Simon Sanchez campus once that's complete. But the 2.5 million local share for the lease, if the lease facility comes in at that level, that's a reasonable number, and like I said before, it needs to be backed by local money, not federal money. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, we now start with Senator Tello. We'll begin with you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon to the panel. Thank you for being here this morning and providing the information. A lot of my questions were actually answered. However, I do have a couple, though. From BBMR, you mentioned I'm trying to look up the last report that was submitted, I believe August 31st, provided to the legislature for the Typhoon Marwah report, and showing of $33 million that was still in balance there. So my question is, where did this money come from, the Typhoon Marwah? Was it appropriated from this body? Was it transferred from the governor's other agencies to be put in this pot? And how much money was initiated first for Typhoon Marwah account?
Do you have a copy of the report?
You know, Lester, I'm trying to pull it up right now because I'm pretty sure I have a copy here, but don't have my other laptop that would show it, but I think maybe we can put it into the Google Drive for everybody in case they don't have it. If the clerks can load it into the Google Drive, that'll be very helpful. This is the Typhoon Marwah report submitted to the legislature. The last one was August 31st, showing a balance of 33 million plus.
Okay, Senator Tello and my colleagues, the information that Senator Burnett first asked is being printed right now. So I think it's to identify that, and let's take a quick recess so we can find the document you're referring to upload, so that everyone will be able to see it. All right? So we're on a recess at this time.
Thank you.
Committee of the whole is called back to order. Colleagues, you should also, in addition to having a hard copy of the information you needed, it's also on on your drive. That being said, Senator Tyree, before you make a comment, Senator Carlson wanted to...
Senator?
Mr. Carlson would like to make a statement first before you continue your questions.
Yeah, but Mr. Chair, if I may, just for my colleagues, don't time me on this. The hard copy that we received, if you want to write this down under original allocation, it was 40, because you can't see it, the hard copy. It looks like a black line and that's it. But just for, if you want to write this down, for original allocation, it was $45,466,973. Expenditures transferred out, the next column over, is $11,657,883. Encumbrances is $164,425, leaving a balance on the balance section of $33,644,665. So if you wanted to write that in, because the document that we have in front of us, it just looks like a black line. It's covered. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of information.
Yes, thank you, Senator. It is even hard for me to read. I had to turn on my flashlight because it's actually in blue. Don't ask me. But thank you for that. Speaker, back to your point before we went on recess, in conferring with OFB, I was making reference to the fiscal note and the bills. OFB has confirmed that the two bills are in fact accounted for in the CRAR, the NAFTAN funding, and then the merit bonus that was passed for GMH. So I stand corrected. The amount is still $37,939,128. Thank you, OFB.
Senator Tyree, you still got 3 minutes left.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The funding that was placed into the Typhoon Malware account was $45 million. The bill that was passed, Public Law 37-17, authorized the governor out of the using general fund money $50 million. Okay. Now, we're here over a year later, and we have a balance of $33,644,665. Other than your intention of using this as a matching for the FEMA, what other plans do you have with this funding?
None.
Okay.
Your legislation is very clear. It's for FEMA approved project match, nothing else.
Okay, and it said that, okay, well, everyone can read the law that passed regarding this, that it is specific to it. So my next question is, I don't think we don't need an amendment to use any of this funding here because it has to do with Typhoon, so that's clear. That we have the students in the classrooms at the time, and then finally this Typhoon finally shut down the school. I do have a question with regards to the $20 million. Is that still in your custody, or does DOE still have that?
It's part of the $45 million, with the exception of about 2.4 or 2.5 that was recently transferred back to DOE.
So the $45 million didn't all come from the governor. It came, so part of that is the $20 million then. So that's what you said, yes. Yeah. I just wanted to clarify, because I thought this public law 37-17 was clear that you had up to $50 million. The only amount that was in here is $45 million. So why would you be taking the $20 million from DOE and putting it in here?
Somebody has to hold their hand once in a while. Somebody has to do the procurement. Somebody has to fix the schools.
Well, the money was appropriated to DOE, not...
Yes, yes, for FEMA-related purposes, yes.
But it was to DOE, not DOA or BBMR.
We're working in collaboration with DOE to get things done, yes.
Wow.
And out of the 20 million, 16.4 has already been used specifically for DOE-related projects. We're not taking that and being, ignorant of the fact of, where it came from. So 16.4 million has already been allocated for projects DOE-related.
I don't see that in this report. I only see that the expenditures transfers out was only 11,657,000.
This is not my report. This is a DOA report that you guys require them to submit. I brought it here to make a point, and the point is we're talking about the temporary facility. We're also helping in many ways to get DOE schools open, working with FEMA. We have a laundry list of unresolved pending projects. That's why you still see, $33 million balance. It's not easy, but it's still a work in progress.
My next question then is to DOE. Do you have means to use the $20 million that's part of this $45 million that we just found out? Because if you look at this, it clearly says Typhoon Accumulated Expenditure Report, period. And it says Typhoon Malware Public Law 37-17. Now, we had a separate public law that was passed giving $20 million. So if you look at this report, you would think that the full 45 came from Public Law 37-17, which is, gosh, that was not the intention. We gave the governor the authority to spend up to $50 million, then we gave DOE the authority to spend up to $20 million. So is DOE still using that $20 million? Because then you have to shave off this $33 million balance, subtract that $20 million, unless Lester said you spent 16.4 of the $20 million already, or it's been allocated. Well, have you seen this report first, Dr. Swanson?
Not until now.
Oh, my goodness.
I do want to add, though, that I am aware of the expenditures that have been against that $20 million, $6 million with the National Guard for the refuse removal, and we have a major contract in procurement for mold mitigation across all the campuses and security fencing, and he's correct that we did transfer back funds to us so that we could run procurement on two or three smaller projects. So we have recovered most of that $20 million.
Mr. Swanson, Dr. Swanson, the $16.4 million that BBMR is talking about, has that already been utilized from the $20 million? That's only showing you have less than, $3 million left.
That's accurate as I understand it.
That you only have $3 million left.
Correct.
Well, that is ironic that you never knew this report existed. Okay, there's a lot to talk about on this report itself, and really how much money is coming from DOE and how much money is coming from Public Law 37-17. I think a report needs to be clear on what money is being utilized, and so this is not true to form. 37-17. Okay, Mr. Chair, my time is up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Being that the author of the bill asked to be last, we'll proceed up to Senator Blas, and then we'll go around, and then we'll end up with the author of the bill. Senator Blas?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just to go on, continue with the line of questioning from General Lady from Dumuni. 3717 was 45 mil. And a separate measure for 20 million was for GDOEs. So that's a total of $65 million. Is that accurate?
Senator, we used the $20 million in collaboration with DOE to help with the effort. So no, it's not separate. They're combined. 20 million of the 45 came from the DOE contribution made by this body.
So while this body appropriated 65, or authorized 65, the 20 million came from the 45. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, we don't recognize a total of 65. We know that the governor was authorized up to 50. So we found 45, 20 of which came from DOE.
So if it's just 45, 20 from the 45, but of the 20 you only use 16, that would be 15 plus 3 or plus 4, that's 19. But your report says 33 million.
Our report takes into account, as Senator Titagui mentioned, $45 million total funds, $11.6 million expended, $164,000 that is encumbered, and that leads you to the $33 million balance.
Okay, let me move on, because there's a lot of questions with regard to that. I'll use the break to fix my abacus. Going to the bill here, the $7 million, and Mr. Carlson, you basically stated that, based on what you have in the hoppers right now, the amount of your cost share, if you were to go with that, I guess it was called the third option, was going to roughly cost you about 2.3 to 2.6 mil.
The local share.
The local share.
Yeah, we're talking about a $25 million grant application to FEMA.
And that local share, the 2.6, will actually come from the account used for the Malware account, right?
Yes.
Okay, which basically would negate, for the purpose of that discussion, the need for the 2.6 in the $7 million. Is that correct?
We're very hopeful that the meeting this week will result in FEMA approving, and then we can take the local match from this account, yes.
Okay. Mr. Swanson, with regard to the $7 million here, assuming that you were going to need that to include your cost for the rent or whatever, or for the construction, how much do you anticipate your cost would be just to equip a campus? Assuming, let's just assume that this campus is going to be that third option. I guess that Tumon. Does the lease of that property include furnishing?
As I understand it, currently it does not,
It does not.
but it could if the specifications are written that way.
Okay. If not, how much do you anticipate that to be?
I would put a rough estimate, just when you're talking about, I think, 83 classrooms and all the equipment, without a lot of technology, you're looking at close to $5 million.
$5 million.
But all of that equipment would then transfer over to the new campus when it opens.
Okay. Do you have, have you put money aside for that purpose? Let's assume that this doesn't pass.
We'll have to find a creative way to squeeze it out of the budget, because we're looking at this option in terms of the 10%, not including the equipment of the school. So for us to find the extra $5 million on that'll, under the current budget, that's not really there, so we have to find a creative way to fund it.
Okay, let me throw another funding source into the mix here. According to news reports, there are still some monies left in ARP funds that you need to encumber by the end of the day today. First off, are we returning any of that money back to the federal government?
As I understand it right now, no. However, we have some things to finalize that cut off at 8 o'clock. I've got to go back and work that. But funding that school project, there was a procurement that we had for furniture and equipment that would have done that, but it did not clear the AG's office.
Okay, so you did go, you started a process, it just didn't clear, hasn't cleared, or
It's been rejected.
It's been rejected. Okay, so the difference between has not cleared and has been rejected.
No, it's been rejected.
Okay.
As of last Thursday.
Is there a plan to be able to try to appeal that or fix that, the issues that caused the rejection so that you can utilize the funding?
With the capacity to be able to transfer funds between grants, we could recover some of that as local money and be able to do it, but that has not happened yet. Because we have several federal grants, we can charge specific kinds of expenses between grants. And if you put the money back in one, you get it refunded back to you, and it comes back as local dollars. So there's a way to do that on a limited basis, but we haven't attacked this issue yet.
Okay. I know that you can't supplant different funding from different grant sources, and you can't replace, I guess, federal funds, local funds with federal funds if they intend to purpose, right?
That's correct.
Is this the procurement of the necessary equipment? What are you categorizing that as? A local procurement or a federal procurement?
For this particular project, it has to be local.
Okay. Okay, and that poses a problem using now, like going back to your ARP funds?
I can't reimburse because we're looking at FEMA.
Okay.
If I'm going to claim the money against FEMA, it has to be local money. It can't be
Sure.
federal grant money.
Sure. So so you're claiming this equipment as a FEMA project?
Yes.
The equipment?
Yes.
I only got 16 seconds left, but how do you claim that a FEMA project when obviously Simon Sanchez wasn't even open during Malware? Or was it?
It was open until the storm. The storm closed it.
So the storm closed it, but was the damage as a result of the storm?
The bulk. I wasn't here for that, but I would say that yes, the facility needed a lot of maintenance, but the impact of the storm took it completely out of service.
Okay, I only got 4 seconds. Mr. Chair, I'll continue my question later. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Drainage?
Mr. Chairman, and welcome to the panel. A lot of important detailed questions already, so I'm going to just see if the baseline that's been established exists. So between Lester and also Steve, I just want to make sure that there's a concurrence between BBMR and OFB. So the $7 million is clearly available, as reported in the funding source from the CRER. And the anticipated revenue on reimbursement 90/10 share could be a possible opportunity for sustaining procurement going forward for this vital project. Am I on pace?
Yes, unfortunately, we're not benefiting from that reimbursement yet. We've got stuff that's in the works, but it's not, it's not there.
Okay. Does OFB concur? That essentially the money's there on the CRER for the $7 million appropriation for this particular bill, should it receive favorable consideration, and that the potentiality for the anticipated 90/10 reimbursement can be funding going forward to possibly sustain the effort.
If you're referring to the 7 million, Senator, I concur with BBMR that the funding is there. As far as the reimbursement, we're just going to have to see whether or not those expenditures qualify for FEMA reimbursement. But to your question, as of today, there is 37 million in excess, so we can assume. But also bear in mind, there's approximately about $80 million of pending bills, also identifying excess revenue. So it's just a matter of which one gets to the gate first. But in reference to 7 million, yes, the money is there.
Okay. So I guess with that, and Mr. Chairman, and also with the, availability of the possibility of the offset with the request, I want to go to the need. I think we've kind of fleshed out whether or not this is going to be a priority of this body. Mr. Swanson, what is the need? I know that I speak to parents. I've got a lot of teachers in my family, and particularly one that was formerly at Simon Sanchez and now working in a higher level position. But the disruption in terms of the double session is very, very onerous on families, on the system, on possibility of learning loss in terms of the early morning hours to do the beginning session at JFK and then the afternoon. Can you speak to the effects and the viability of this project going forward and the need for DOE to do this?
Thank you, Senator. The primary need, first of all, is to be able to run a full spectrum of high school related activities. For both campuses, that's extremely limited because you're competing to use the same facilities at the same time. So when you get into extracurricular activities especially, that's limited. Also the opportunity for staying longer on campus to do academic enrichment activities, different kinds of academically related programs that go outside of normal class time, that's impacted. And then also under the current schedule, we've really restricted the amount of time kids are in class. So the opportunity to have really higher level interaction with teachers and other students working on projects, and especially because we use a lot of project-based instruction, it's limited. So yes, we technically meet the time requirements, but whether or not we have the opportunity to have the flexibility to do either the restorative work for students who are struggling or the enrichment work for students who are trying to excel and go farther. For example, we have a team from Tejan High School that's going to be presenting at a national conference if we can fund that. All the work that they did to get that certification in their levels was done outside of class time. And so I can't do that at JFK or for Simon Sanchez. I can't do it at Ukadu. And I was at Ukadu this morning at 6 o'clock when the first buses rolled in and set kids, there and get ready to go to class. So I'm looking at that, and at noontime they're done. That might feel good in terms of my school day is short, but in terms of developmental knowledge about how young adolescent minds work, they work better at about 9:30. So one of the kids said last year, I can't math at 6:30 in the morning. And I agree with them, but this is where we are at the moment. So being able to decouple those student bodies, and I'm looking forward to doing the same thing with Ukadu and FBLG, is get those kids back on the regular full day schedules, which means households can operate on a more reasonable schedule as well. So yeah, we're technically serving the need, but not at the level that we should be.
I've seen similar studies as well, and like I said, the teachers in my family remind me of those things as well. So I guess going forward, you mentioned the fact that you've got, of course, the need to do procurement. I mean, this is not going to happen overnight. So do you see this appropriation and the pending opportunities going forward, depending on how we, get our paperwork in and everything turns around with FEMA, that this is something that is laying the groundwork so that you can get this job done? I would be surprised if this was even able to carry out after the holidays through the school year, maybe towards the end. Am I on track?
You're probably accurate on that. My anticipation, and I should have known better coming from wildfire country in Washington State, FEMA takes a while. They don't move quickly. So while this is coming, it's not here yet. So I can't do anything until they've actually provided the approval, and then we'll go into the process of putting this procurement out to either do the lease facilities or the other plan to put temporary facilities on the Guam housing land. But I can't put that on the street for bid until I know which way it's going to go.
So I just want to wrap it up, Mr. Chair, here. I think that, at least for me, I've heard enough to know that what we're attempting to do here and what the bill contemplates is the ability to provide a funding source so all this planning can get underway. That's how the title of the bill is put forward. That's how the body of the bill explains itself, at least in my simple reading. And that seems to be how the superintendent has laid it out, that in order for him to move forward, even in contemplation of some of these proposals that have been put on the table, they need to be fleshed out, they need to be procured. And so, you know, I want to say, do you encourage us, Mr. Superintendent, to pass this bill so that you can start the planning process and get this underway?
Yes, absolutely, Senator.
Okay, that's good enough for me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Barnett, do you have any questions for the full panel?
Si Diyos masi, Mr. Chair, Manana si Diyos to the people of Guam and to my colleagues, and good morning to the panel. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, Mr. Superintendent. So I guess I just kind of wanted to start with maybe following up on the retiring speaker, but a little different route, because I'm hearing here that there's money available for Malware. The superintendent talked about the cost of $5 million for furniture. But I had also heard, that there was some negotiation ongoing with the owners of this Tumon Bay shopping mall relative to them providing the furniture. Did that fall on its face? Is that still an option?
I've heard rumors of that. We have not been involved in it.
Okay. So
That could be written into the specifications for the bid.
all right. I guess my question is, if we took away the bill, would you still be able to move forward with the funding from the Malware Relief Fund and existing funding?
I would say no, because we have to fund our 10% regardless,
And that's the 2.5 million.
either project.
Okay. And I agree with your comments earlier. As you know, we've been really getting on GDOE's behind to end this double session, because you're right, study after study after study basically shows that kids aren't even really awake or able to study anytime before 8:30 in the morning. So it's always been very burdensome for families, and I get the sentiment of some of my colleagues, which was like, let's just get these kids back into the classroom. So I encourage any effort that's going to bring us to the opening of the temporary campus for Sanchez, and then eventually, right, the rebuilding of the new campus. But just going back to some of the procurement issues, because I think Lester Carlson had said that it was necessary for the folks in the administration to hold GDOE's hand. And I guess just my comment on that is I don't know if we've yet seen the benefits of this hand holding, because, you know, I've been having you in the public hearing room across the hall for, over a year, and it's just been one thing after another with this $20 million. So I'm encouraged that, well, maybe I'm not encouraged, but the mold mitigation, if you could tell us exactly where we're at with that contract, with each of these different contracts that are tied to this $20 million. If anybody up here can answer that. Swanson, Superintendent, please.
My knowledge of it is, well, first of all, the first $6 million was the charge you get from the National Guard for debris removal in the course of recovery from the typhoon. There is money set aside. There are two procurement projects, the two big ones that we're working in partnership with DPW to and GSA to put those out, and that is the mold mitigation, and that's the bulk of that. And that was an $8 to $10 million estimate there. And then the second one is a fence contract, which is being reviewed. The scope of work is being reviewed right now before it goes back out, so that we're sure that we have enough miles of fencing installed on the property way to secure the campuses. And then, as Mr. Carlson said, we've just transferred, I think it's $2.6 million back to us for some smaller projects that we're doing for repair. But ultimately, when these all clear, we will have accessed all 20 million.
I remember at the time, the train of thought was that, and I can't remember if it was probably the former superintendent who had said that, oh, we're taking this 20 million, and then because of the FEMA reimbursements, we're actually going to be able to flip it and end up with more than $20 million. Is that what it's looking like to you?
You could flip it, but you're going to end up with 18 million. It's 20%, you know.
I guess, Mr. Ariola, could you tell us where we are with the fencing? I know superintendent had talked about revising the scope of work, but what's the timeline? I only ask because I've received a lot of concerns from principals relative to dangerous individuals who can walk onto our kids' schools at any time because we don't have that security fencing. Up in Jigo, there's a school now that's being overrun by stray dogs, and I actually had to call Department of Agriculture if they could get the animal control specialists up to the campus to remedy that. So do you have a timeline?
I'm a little bit surprised, Senator. We're not doing any fencing for DOE. DOE's got their procurement. DOE has their construction authority. The only fencing we're doing is at our bus satellite stations. And there was one fencing that we were hoping to do, actually open a gate in the back of Okadu, because we put a road in there for safety. But we weren't, something went through where they weren't allowed to put a gate through to connect to the backside of Okadu for safety concerns. But we're not doing any fencing projects right now. Not for DOE, no. We're cleaning up the fence down at Southern High because it's...
Thank you for that. Yeah. Les, are you guys involved with that? Or Superintendent, did you misspeak?
Apparently I have.
I mean, all this hand-holding that's been going on over the last year, you guys should be causeless already from holding each other's hand, but we don't have much to show for it, unfortunately.
With regard to the fence contract, our procurement folks have been working with the procurement individual at Department of Administration to put the contract together and put it out. It's been a very close working relationship. It is not, there had to be a review of the number of, literally, the distance that needs to be fenced. And they were in the process last week of walking the properties and making sure that that's accurate. At this point, it's not operational, but it is being procured.
Yeah, again, I'm just trying to reconcile what benefit this hand-holding has been to the Guam Department of Education and our public school kids, because, I mean, based on what you're telling me, we haven't really had forward traction on the mold or the fencing.
They have not moved at the rate that I'd anticipated, but at this point, we're working together to get the job done. And I would hope that soon we can have this operational and people can see it happening.
No, we're the ones running for re-election, Mr. Superintendent, but, you know, I didn't expect that kind of political answer from you.
Well, the re-election part I understand, but I don't have to do that. My concern is to get this done and done well so that it does exactly what we want it to do.
Right, and I think the point is that, you know, it's been well over a year since Typhoon Malware, and it's really been the same old story. I mean, if I go back 6-7 months and look at the transcripts from the hearing, I'm pretty sure you're going to be saying the same thing, that the projects aren't moving forward in the way that you know, the Guam Department of Education, or even our school kids want and deserve. So, nothing further, Mr. Chair, this time. Madam Chair, Susan Smasi.
Thank you, Senator Barnett. Speaker Chalahi, you are recognized.
Cesar Masi, Madam Chair. So it's very confusing because we've got a Malware report that we were referred to look at, that there's a $33 million balance, but then we're told that $20 million of projects out of $45 million appropriation has been pretty much dedicated already to GDOE. Or 16.4 was used for DOE projects and 4.5 was returned. That's over 20 million. But we still have a $33 million balance. So then, Mr. Carlson, were you saying that this report is not accurate because you didn't prepare it, it's DOA, and they're not correct?
No, Madam Speaker, I did not say that. All I said was, and it's not 6 million returned to DOE, it was like 2.6. So I thought I was going to come down here and give you guys some good news about, you know, the bill to be able to provide funding for the temporary school. I thought reminding you guys about the Malware account that you guys, you know, put together, and we put funding in it to address it. I thought that would be received as good news, and all I'm hearing is, you know, kind of quite the opposite. So now I think I'm the one that's confused.
All right, Mr. Carlson, the question is there 33 million left, or are you saying this balance is not accurate, the report that we have? Because you said 16.4 went to DOE projects, and we still have 33 million left.
Yeah, as Mr. Swanson, Dr. Swanson said, the procurement of the fence repair and the mold mitigation are still being put together. The money is allocated in our heads under contracts, very fourth column over, $14.3 million. That is there for a specific reason, to be able to make sure that when the fence and the mold go out, that there's sufficient funding to certify against it. So yes, it's not done, but is it in the works? As Dr. Swanson said, yes. Things take time. I'm sorry, it takes time. I mean, I know we have a laundry list of pending projects from Malware. Everybody would wish that they would be like done. Just because the money's available doesn't mean it's going to happen like tomorrow. We still have all this interaction with FEMA because the stipulation on the use of this money is that it has to be to fund a FEMA-approved projects.
All right, so you're saying that the 14 million that we're counting as a $33 million balance, part of that is already kind of set aside for GDOE projects. Mm-hmm. So it's 33 minus the 14 million that we have that we should count on, not 33 million, right?
That's accurate.
And would that be true for the 15 million that was also allocated under miscellaneous, that we should deduct that from the 33 million that we have available to spend as well?
No, anything under miscellaneous is, to me, a miscellaneous is a holding account. It's like you transfer it out into an object category when you need to, but there's not been a need to move it into contracts or supplies or anything, so it's available and there's no encumbrances on it.
All right, so how much would you say of the 33 million can we really count on to be available after whatever else you're planning on spending this for the mold mitigation, the security fencing, and other projects for other agencies? What should we really count on?
Close to 20.
20 still?
No, 33 minus 14. 19.
Okay, so all these other unencumbered funds, you don't plan to
And this is primarily for the 10% match. And just to clarify, when Dr. Swanson says that the 10% match has to come from local funds, these are local funds appropriated by this body.
Yes, no. I think it's great if we had 33 million, but it didn't make sense that you're saying we have 33, but 14 of that is actually already allocated for other projects, not including this one, right? So that's not 33.
Until the contracts are signed, it's still available.
Are you suggesting that we use it and take that money away?
No.
Okay, then we really just need an accurate balance. So you're saying 20 after the ones that you're really planning to spend, 33 minus 14 would be?
Something in that neighborhood.
Okay, all right.
And one more point, the account was created, there was, a cooperative infusion from GDOE. If they have further needs, we're not going to cut them off at the knees. They still have access to this money.
All right, so there's 19 million left. You're saying there are no other projects that we're planning to spend it on for Typhoon
No, there's a
Malware?
lot of projects. They're just not at the stage where we're ready to draw down. If you talk to the folks over at Homeland, they'll show you a spreadsheet this long. So you think the mobile mitigation and the fence line are taking a long time? Well, there's a lot of other things that are taking a long time as well.
Okay, so if we use this source of funding that you're proposing, we're going to be taking away from those projects?
No, you're going to be able to still help a lot.
Mr. Carlson, can you speak a little closer to the microphone, please? Yeah, okay, they were trying to get you to, thank you.
There's a lot of room to be able to help the pending projects. I don't see anything that we're doing here that would impair the ability for the pending projects to still get the 10%.
Okay, so you're saying there's 14 for DOE set aside, there's some other pending projects, and that we can still take 7 million out of the 19 that is left.
No, I'm saying that for the purposes of praying that FEMA says yes, it's a $26 million temporary facility cost. The 10% cost that we would have to bear is $2.5 million. It doesn't have to come from the general fund excess. It should rightly come from this fund.
Yes, I agree with you on that. So, but you're counting on, you only are suggesting we appropriate 2.5 million as opposed to 7 million.
You don't need to appropriate it.
I mean, you're saying, that's my point. If you're able to use, and I'm sure that's your point too, that if you're able to use FEMA the Malware funding, we didn't need this bill at all, we shouldn't be here, that should have been done. That can be set aside for that purpose. If it's 2.5 million, you saying you have it, you have the authority to spend it. Yeah, I agree with you. This is like, I feel like, again, we're just going around in circles and we're announcing that we're putting funding towards Simon Sanchez, but nothing in this bill goes towards rebuilding Simon Sanchez. This is all, the bill says it's going to cover the cost for the rebuilding and the leasing of a temporary campus, but it's really not at all, it looks to me now, intended to move us forward on the rebuilding. It's really just to move your leased site forward, spending $2.5 million, and maybe you want to use $5 million more for equipment, Dr. Swanson or GDOE, for this new site. Can you just tell us the status of the new Simon Sanchez that this bill announced that we were going to be working on, and we're obviously not moving it with this because there's already a construction manager hired. We don't need to fund that out of this bill either. So what is the status of Simon Sanchez? How much longer is it going to take? What is the next phase?
My understanding of the next phase is the securing of financing and then advertising and selecting a contractor to do the work. We're not directly involved in that process. That's a DPW project.
Selecting the contractor?
They'll select
Solicit the RFP. Is the RFP ready, Director Arreola?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As you said, we've already finished finalized the contract with the selected construction manager. Construction manager will go in and review the plans, review the designs, follow the scope of work that we let out in the RFP, assist us with putting the bid package together for both the financing and the construction of the school in coordination with GITA. And so I don't have a timeline right now. I was just mentioning to Lester, every time I mention a timeline to the good senators here, some delays always happen, and then we're delayed again. So we're gonna let the construction managers do their job, do their due diligence to get in there and look at the plans and do what they're supposed to do based on the scope. Assist us with the IFB, like I said, along with GITA, and find a contractor to build the school, assuming we get financing for it.
All right, well, that financing part, how much did you estimate it would cost before you hired the construction manager for $7 million?
Well, for the construction of the school?
Yes.
Yeah. Estimated costs, at least when we first got this set of plans, was anywhere from between 140 and 150, 160 million.
And that's how you based spending $7 million for a construction manager?
Correct.
And your estimate of how long it will take then?
I'm sorry?
Your estimate of how long it will take? From now, you have your construction manager to completing construction.
I don't know. I imagine 6-8 months. And don't hold me to it, but
to do what?
To basically go. The scope of work is extremely, it's detailed. It's long. It requires them to go in and look at the existing plans from the present architects. And again, it's water under the bridge, but I had recommended 3 years ago to get the construction manager in there so we know exactly what's going on. So this is going to be a new set of eyes on the plans themselves. If there's any areas for cost cutting, if there's any areas for improving the plans, they'll point that out to us. They'll act as the owner's agent. And so that's where we are. It does take time. This is a huge building that we're putting up.
All right, but no, how long before construction is completed?
The preliminarily the first estimates that I got is going to take a little over 2 years for construction from the moment they break ground. That's the number I was hearing.
All right, so we've got 6 to 8 months to review the plans, and then they actually have to draft an IFB, and then they have to put that out for bid. So it looks to me 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, you add 4 months for that IFB process. That's another year to even begin, and then you're saying 2 years after. I'm just curious because Mr. Swanson is calculating based on a 3-year estimate, and I'm just wondering where you got that 3-year estimate, Mr. Swanson.
Ma'am, that's
the last question,
it's
Madam
from
Speaker.
personal
Sorry.
experience.
Experience?
I've built things here on Guam before, and I've built it in other places, and I know that one thing to design and get it contracted is another thing to execute.
All right. Have you ever had the experience of taking 1 year to procure a construction manager or more? Maybe 3 years, you said? You've been saying we needed a construction manager 4 years.
Perhaps I need to revise my estimate upward.
Thank you. I know my time's up, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Paris, you are now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So it looks to me, so judging from the answers to the previous, the speaker's questions, so there is $2.5 million that can be utilized for the leasing, and that this bill is not needed for that. Is that correct?
Dr. Swenson? Oh, I'm sorry. Lester, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I thought the question was for Swenson. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that there may be some costs associated with maybe furniture that's still usable at Simon Sanchez being transferred down, a few other things that we might be missing. So I would not, and it all depends on what FEMA approves. You know, we're going to try to ask for, furniture money. If they say yes, okay. But, if not, we might need to pull the furniture from Simon Sanchez that's usable, and there's a cost to do that. So I'm not at all saying that the bill and the funding is not needed. There might be some amount that could be set aside for contingencies associated with this, should this come to pass.
Dr. Swenson, the question?
No, no questions on this.
No, the question was asked, could you have done this without this bill, the 2.3 that's needed, or the 10%?
Not with the resources that we currently have available, no.
Utilizing the funding.
If the funding is accessible, we could do it there, yes.
That answer your question?
Yeah, so I guess it's depending on whether the funding is accessible. So Lester Carlson, is the funding accessible to DOE to get the 2.5 million plus contingencies?
If FEMA approves the project, the matching should come from this account.
Okay, thank you. And then regards to the the information that we received regarding the leased Tumon Bay lease facility. So, when the news first came out, I was a little bit cringing because, it didn't seem like there was any kind of solicitation, and already there was costs, identification of costs, and even the details of, a lot of the details were already kind of obtained. And so I just want some clarity as far as, was the procurement process used in getting this information, or how was this information gained? This is to Superintendent Swanson.
I'm not aware of the specific individuals or purposes involved. That information was provided to me by the Governor's Chief of Staff in our first conference over this topic, and that the owners of this group were interested in participating in it. Beyond that, I don't know.
Okay, do we have any representative to provide this information? I guess it's the Chief of Staff, so he's not here. Do you have any information on this, Lester?
I also received the information, and I think you can couch this as an unsolicited proposal. I don't want to do anything that would impair procurement, but this was provided to me, Dr. Swanson. It's a good point of discussion. The building seems to be certainly large enough to facilitate the temporary needs, and there's some costs, and it's good to have something to kind of gauge yourself by. So I believe that the procurement is still necessary. My fiscal note quoted a story in the paper.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any issue with the procurement for temporary facilities, obviously, because if we're going to take more than 3+ years for construction, I think, and if FEMA can provide the reimbursement, I mean, obviously, we need to move in that direction. But regarding the procurement itself, if it is an unsolicited bid, right, or unsolicited offer, it still needs to go out with a competitive process. And so these numbers might change, and I guess there's too many unknowns in regards to procuring a temporary facility. So I know there was another proposal on, I guess there was a bill that was sent out regarding Guam Housing Corporation. So have you analyzed which is preferable, the Guam Housing Corporation versus the lease? Dr. Swanson, has there been any analysis between the two?
We've done some preliminary work on to understand the mechanics of everything that has to go into using the Guam housing property, which involves a good deal of site preparation. That's why in my comments earlier, we estimated the engineering estimate was $1.8 to $2 million to prepare the site so that you could put movable units on that land, along with repairs to one portion of the Simon Sanchez campus that is still usable, not the main building, but the one that has all the CTE classrooms in it, and the gymnasium. Preferentially, I'm looking for either one that will work. The advantage for the Simon Sanchez locale is the kids are in the neighborhood. There's not a long commute time. They're using facilities that are available to them without travel. The other is the Tumon Malls project is a completely self-contained and ready classroom without the issues of passing outside, and so there's pluses and minuses to both. What I'm really after is a good, workable, sustainable environment for the students in Simon Sanchez over the course of construction of this school.
Okay, so yeah, it's going to come down to possibly cost, right? And whether FEMA approves of it. Have you had any response from FEMA regarding both projects?
They've asked us to narrow the scope, provide more information a couple of times, and we have done that. Like Mr. Carlson said, we're supposed to have a meeting, I believe, this Thursday with FEMA, and then we'll get a more clarification around what they're willing to support or not willing to support, but we don't really know that yet.
Okay, so the other thing, so this bill seems definitely more geared towards temporary structures. I guess the wording here states infrastructure development, utilities, and maintenance. And it seems to be aligned with what was provided, the information provided to us by the Tumon Bay, this document that was just circulated amongst my colleagues. What is your understanding, so this is for Lester Carlson, what is your understanding of so it states here, cost and time frame, estimated $12 million for initial build out and occupancy, 6 months. So is the developer going to provide this, or is it going to be GDOE that has to pay for this?
My understanding is that the owner will do the build out, and I prefer that because we're talking about a procurement process that has been the crux of the delay in all our FEMA-related projects. So if the entity, I'm going to quit using that name, offers to do the build out, and we don't have to go out and do the procurement and delay even further the use of the facility for the Simon Sanchez folks, and I think that works out for everybody's benefit.
So would the developer pay for that, or would DOE pay for that $12 million?
It's part of the terms and conditions associated with this unsolicited proposal.
Okay, so then we would have to pay for that.
Yes.
Okay.
But remember, if FEMA says yes,
right,
this is going to be covered by FEMA. So we, with FEMA's help.
Yeah, so I think the language of the bill, if there is more money left over, let's say it's only going to cost $2.5 million, and let's say DOE has access to that funds, I think it'd be good to include in this bill the actual construction of Simon Sanchez, right? Because, if this bill is not needed for temporary structures, perhaps the funding can go towards the actual rebuild. So that, I guess the question is for Director Arreola. Again, I know you were asked the question earlier, how much it's going to cost to finance. Do you have any rough estimates of, getting this started? Because I know this is really the ultimate solution, is getting the rebuild of Sanchez versus temporary leasing. Do we have any estimates of that cost?
No, Senator, we don't. We've had preliminary discussions only on the process involved in financing this school, but we are not we're not close to interest rates, lease amounts, debt service, or things of that nature. We are concentrating right now on the construction management and putting the bid together.
Yeah, and I think as time goes by, the cost increases. Is that your understanding?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
And then also, the process, the financing was actually more costlier. I think we discussed this during the passage of the bill, the Rebuild Sanchez bill. And, you know, it wasn't the most cost-effective option. And I know, judging from, I believe there was, the federal government has reduced interest rates. Is that correct?
I don't know that personally. That's not basically my lane, but we will do everything we can to protect the government, because that's part of our job, to protect the government, make sure we have a school that we can afford and a school that functions properly.
Okay, and when will we know the details of the cost of financing the rebuild? Yeah, sorry, Director. Is there like a time frame where we can figure out the cost?
For financing the reconstruction?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, you know, we've got preliminary estimates. Like I mentioned, there was, I think the first number that came out was 140 to 150 million, but we really won't know. That's why we're trying to sharpen our pencils and get as close to a number as we can, so that when we go out to bid, we know exactly what we're dealing with. And if we have to negotiate, then that's what we'll do to get the best price out there. But you're right. Like I've mentioned many times before, the construction market out there is it's intense. There's a lot of projects out there, but something like this, we should get quite a number of construction companies, simply because it's a large enough project that they'll pay attention and take care of. Because right now the clear majority of projects are in the base.
Okay, thank you. I think that's my time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're very welcome, Madam Senator Paris. Sorry. Vice Speaker, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And before my time stops, could I do a point of information first as it relates to a couple of laws that were introduced, so that I can bring the perspective in before my questioning? A point of information?
No, the point of information regarding the bills?
No, a point of information regarding laws,
No,
two laws.
No. Well, we'll just go ahead with the clock, Madam Speaker. Madam Vice Chair, if you don't mind. We'll just continue on.
Manana Sitsuis to the panel
I'll
members
allow you
here, to
extra
the
time
listening
if you need
audience.
it.
And I just, again, wanting to give a perspective that 10 years ago, Public Law 3263 was a law that was relative to designating $7 million of additional revenue derived from the valuation of real property due to commence in the 2013-2014 years toward the replacement or renovation of Simon Sanchez. And Public Law, and I'm not going to read the rest, 32-120, which was relative to the renovation or construction of the new Simon Sanchez School, to amend and to renumber and to work with a credits toward that from the revaluation of the real property. So my questions first is to Lester. The governor recently approved some funding related to Simon Sanchez High School, and I don't believe it was related to the temporary campus, however, so can you confirm to us that the project funded through this bill is different than the project the governor recently allowed to proceed?
Yes, you're correct. The governor signed the construction manager contract. That's to help Vince.
For DPW?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so to Dr. Swanson, let us say that things go our way and we end up not needing this appropriation or this bill for a temporary campus. I want to point out that Bill 321 states $7 million appropriation is also for costs associated with the reconstruction of the Simon Sanchez School campus. Do you agree that in the event GDOE does not need the $7 million in local funding for a temporary campus, that you can use these funds for the larger project of building a new Simon Sanchez?
I would prefer that we think of that in terms of equipping the new building. It's one thing to build a building, it's another thing to have the things in it that you need to deliver the curriculum.
And that is,
that would certainly be in the scope, as far as I'm concerned.
so is collateral equipment funding through this bill? Is there a need for collateral equipment in the temporary campus this bill funds?
Yes.
Okay,
As I understand it, at this point, yes.
okay. And can you talk about the procurement process for the temporary campus? What sort of RFP or IFB will you be issuing, and how soon can this temporary campus open?
As soon as we have the approval from FEMA and understand that payment schedule, and that's critical, then we can put I'd have to check with the Attorney General's office to find which procurement mechanism to use so that we get the right product. But we could get it turned on if it's from the time we get the go-ahead, it would probably take 60 to 90 days to get it in the advertised for bid. So it's a 2 or 3 month process to get that going, and then you have to start the work once the contract is awarded.
Thank you, Dr. Swanson. And then to you, Mr. Vince, what will DPW's role be in either the acquisition, construction, or renovation of a temporary campus for Simon Sanchez?
At this point, Senator, we could assist, but we wouldn't be directly involved. DOE does have contractual authority, construction authority. As you see, they've hired some contractors to repair a number of their schools, so they can do this on their own. We can assist, and then they'll just go through the standard timelines.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The reason why I wanted to bring up the previous laws was because since 2013, it's now 2024. 32nd Guam Legislature, we're now in the 37th, and we went from 7 to 10 million all the way up to 140 to 160. If this $7 million was provided today, at least if it's not needed for the building, at least for collateral equipment, at least for other stuff, we can get it going. And I just want to see that some may say it's not necessary, isn't necessary. I'm saying whatever it takes to build this thing, because the more we wait, every day we wait. We started off at $7 million since Speaker Wampat and myself as the co-sponsor with Senator Rory and others till today of where we're at, and we're looking at 140 to 160 million, and it's going to keep growing if we don't act now. So that's where I'm at, Mr. Chair, and thank you, and I still have time, so I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Brown?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Certainly good morning to all of you on the panel. I did want to ask the superintendent, I know that we'd spoken a few months earlier about this issue of temporary classrooms at Simon Sanchez, and at the time you had provided perhaps an estimate that these temporary classrooms could be put in place by December of this year. And it sounds like we're still at step one in terms of addressing the funding. So where are we with that in the last few months? What has transpired?
Where we have been is waiting for FEMA. And because until we get the answer from them, we're at a standstill. And my office has been working with our local authorities in connection with FEMA for the last several weeks to try to get that meeting scheduled and get the decision. Because the decision is going to drive the whole thing. I'm hoping that they come up with an answer that we can implement quickly, but I don't know that. I won't know it until we have that conversation. At this point, it's tentatively scheduled for Thursday. I hope that that stays with that. It's been rescheduled a couple times.
With regards to the funding, is this something that Department of Education, do you have the $7 million set aside, or is this something that requires another appropriation?
No, it would have to be an appropriation. We don't have 7 million set aside for this.
And would that encompass what you anticipate to be your share for the government of Guam or DOE is the $7 million?
Right. That would cover our percentage of the grant, the 10%, and the associated costs that go with that. And then depending on which option is approved, those are variables as you've already seen.
And then with regards to the existing facility, we had discussions where you relayed perhaps that the gymnasium or the cafeteria may still be able to be used to accommodate should this temporary facility be moved forward in construction. Is that still the case?
Yes.
Those parts of the campus still feasible to be able to maintain and use for those purposes?
We'd have to do some maintenance work similar to what we've been doing to bring the other schools up to public health standards, but within that, the balance of that money, we could be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I certainly hope you have progress. I mean, it's been, like I said, 3 or 4 months ago, I think we initially had this discussion about these temporary facilities, and now you're telling me FEMA is the reason that we've not moved forward with regards to this.
Well, the rate that they make the decision and provide the input and then make that funding available, that's going to be the key to the whole thing. But to do the procurement, we have to have the money to back our side of it.
And those anticipated, are you still looking, is FEMA only specifically looking at funding this proposal of these temporary facilities, or are there other options that you have in discussion with them as an alternative to building these temporary classroom facilities?
Well, we have the temporary classrooms or the mall complex, that's the Tumon Mall. The third one is not an option I want to go to, and that would involve yet another double session environment, and that's what we're trying to get away from.
And so other than that, you anticipate with this additional funding that you'll be able to start that process, or shall we say bring your share of the money to the table?
Well, yeah, because once that's made available, we can get started with the procurement process, and that, we have to have the money connected to the project before we put it out on the street.
And are you prepared to do that? Have your issues with procurement been addressed?
They have been greatly improved.
Well, it's good to hear that, because it's often what we hear is the reason why things have not moved forward.
I've got some new people doing a much better job.
Well, I'm happy. I think we're all happy to hear that. We'll certainly like to see the outcome of that improvement. If I can ask on the financial side, we're hearing the cries from the Guam Memorial Hospital about their current financial situation. I think we were here not even a year ago dealing with appropriating additional money. So with that so-called crisis looming, how are we going to be able to address all that? They're asking for another, $30–40 million that they're claiming was not included in the budget bill to be able to get through the year that has just started. I mean, fiscal year hasn't even started yet, and we're already in the hole, so to speak. So do we anticipate that the $7 million will be a walk in the park and we can provide it and fund it and address all the other issues the current administration is saying they don't have money for?
Thank you for that question, Senator Brown. One more time. If FEMA approves this project, the 10% comes out of the Malware account. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to worry about it, that $2.5 million or so. I do agree that some contingency, not the entire $7 million, but something should be made available should there be additional costs that FEMA is not covering. And my example was furniture relocation and things of that nature. With regards to the hospital, you'll be getting a letter in the next day or so as you contemplate your Bill 355, the supplemental budget bill, that will, again, ask your consideration as a body to include funding for GMH.
Well, I'm sure that'll be interesting. I'm sure we'll be back to dialogue. So with regards to the money that was put aside for Typhoon Malware, and again, this to me at the time when we had this discussion is kind of unprecedented, because I've not known in my time in the legislature that we would appropriate these type of funds to address a typhoon. I mean, normally the amounts were certainly far less than that, and then federal funds kicked in. So as a result of that, you did not, or the administration did not use all of the money that had been appropriated, which is a good and bad thing, but unusual that we would do that. But the legislature decided to do that.
I think you guys really made a good decision. During the time after the typhoon, we had so many federal agencies out here helping, SBA, FEMA, God, you name it. And the extent of damage, the amount of individual claims, public assistance claims, it's huge, you know. So the individual assistance, which is, you know, like households, those thankfully were addressed really quickly, but we still have all of our outstanding public assistance claims, which are paperwork intensive and FEMA reviewed, and you do this, you do that. And Dr. Swanson's correct. Once we get the indication and approval from FEMA on which way they want to go, who knows? They might want us to get the temporary classrooms and, you know, put them next to the campus. That's kind of, I'm not getting that vibe. I'm getting more of a warm and fuzzy about, you know, the temporary facility, and I don't want to spank my hand too hard, but, you know, it was published in the newspaper, so I'm not saying anything out of hand, but I think that's where they're going, and we're on the same page with a meeting scheduled for this Thursday, and we're hoping that the indications will be there so that we can do the next step and get the procurement, because we can certify the funds as being, you know, locally matched with a FEMA grant. So maybe the temporary facility acquisition is, you know, closer than we've ever been.
Well, I think we all certainly hope so. I mean, it's been an unfortunate situation of what the students, and I'm sure the family members of the students at Simon Sanchez and the staff and teachers up there have had to endure, combining with the changes of time also to the students at JFK. I can't imagine being that student, having to get up exceptionally early in the morning, or in the case of the Simon Sanchez students that are going home right now when it's getting dark. So I think we'd like to certainly see a solution, and we appreciate providing the information, and we hope we hear something favorable. I think this is something that we need to move forward to. But it's also a sign, the bigger issue here, and, you know, we appreciate looking at the temporary solution so that we can get these children in a workable environment, is the whole issue of the procurement for Simon Sanchez to begin with. Because if you look at it and you step back, you're looking at additional $7 million we otherwise would not be expending on a temporary facility, and the actual money going into the long-term construction of the actual school, so that we can move forward. It has been a surprise for a whole bunch of reasons that it has taken so long to get the construction of the new Simon Sanchez off the ground. I mean, we've had, in one administration, 5 or 6 schools constructed. And here we are towards the end of this administration, and, we're still looking to, take out the shovel and shovel the sand. So I'm hoping that that will move forward, because that really is the bigger issue. The bigger issue is the fact that the actual school, prior to even Typhoon Malware coming around, that was the focus, was building a new Simon Sanchez High School. And again, why it has taken so long, the list goes on, but I appreciate you responding to my questions. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Lujan.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Chair. And good morning, gentlemen, ma'am. Maybe just go with what the bill, how the bill is written. Basically, to support the cost associated with reconstruction of Simon Sanchez High School, as well as associated costs with leasing temporary campus for Sanchez. Now, Mr. Carlson, you said there's a good possibility that FEMA will incur will be able to give us the money to incur the $2.5 million. Is Is it a good possibility that will happen?
Fingers crossed.
Okay. With that being said, the retention of a construction manager, that's already been allocated, and the funding has been identified for that already.
The construction manager is specific to the new school.
Yes.
Not this.
Not this, okay, so we
Yeah,
still...
but this is, okay, again, hypothetically.
Okay.
Hypothetically, if that unsolicited proposal, the details of which were published in the newspaper in the summer, come to fruition in some form or fashion, then the person who we're going to be leasing the facility from would be the one to do that. And of course, there are classroom size minimums, there are standards that need to be met, and it would have to be inspected, you know. So I would imagine that there's a playbook to go by for the, you know, construction of the classrooms and all that other good stuff.
For the temporary classroom?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay. So that's not off the charts here, so, okay. So we'll possibly still need some sort of a construction manager then, basically.
I think you wouldn't, if you were going to lease a facility,
yeah,
and the funding was there for you to have it built out, you would not accept it until...
Sure.
So I think between the public health inspections, fire department inspections, as long as we have an agreement that this is going to consist of X, Y, Z, and, you know, 3 apple trees, I don't really see a need for a construction manager for the temporary school.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Now, in regards to purchase for campus supplies and equipment, I would assume at this point that the purchase of supplies and equipment will also be transferable to the new campus as well, if supplies and equipment were to be ordered?
Yes.
So that will lessen, again, the need for, well, maybe not in totality remove the need for equipment.
It would offset it, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Infrastructure development, what does that mean, basically? Is that what we just said in regards to, like, you know, classroom sizes and things like that?
Well, so remember, one proposal is the temporary classrooms set up adjacent to the existing campus. So that would necessitate utility hookups, a concrete pad, a few other site development requirements. And so I think the author wrote this in an encompassing manner.
Yeah.
So kudos to the author for including that, just in case, you know, here we are thinking that we're going to get the leased facility, and then they tell us, no, go with the temporary classrooms. At least it's covered.
Sure, okay. And so, again, utilities and maintenance, again, will come there. Okay, no, I was just trying to see what we scratch off the list here, but actually everything remains because we don't know at this point which direction we're going to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Based on your assessment with this, how the bill is crafted as well, is this something that we need then to move forward?
I believe that you do, I don't think you need $7 million. I think you might need $4 million. And again, the cost here is covered under the Malware account, the contingency funding to be able to get stuff from Sanchez that's still usable, clean it up, take it down to wherever it's going to go.
Sure.
And then in the case of the requirements, if the Guam housing property was leased, you know, site work, utility hookups, I don't know if a power pole or 2 need to get put over there. So either which way, you're probably going to have some out-of-pocket costs.
So either way, you would need about 4, or are you saying that the leased property would require about 4? Because if we're looking at the leased property and FEMA will cover 2.5, that leaves us with 4.5 million. So are you saying that 4.5 will be adequate for either site? Or are you?
I think so, yes.
So 4.5 be, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah. Dr. Swanson, do you concur?
I would say at least at that level,
At least, I'm sorry?
at least at the 4 million level. Everything we do is expensive.
Sure.
I mean, even being conservative, there are minimum standards that we have to meet.
Yeah, because earlier you were asked if you need the 7 million. You said, yes, you absolutely do to move forward. But you now concur that the 4.5 will be adequate to move forward with either facility?
Depending on the results, initially at the level of 7, we have sufficient funding backing the procurement and the bid. Whatever that turns out to be, then that's going to determine how much we recover from FEMA. The rest of any balance would go straight into what's equipping classrooms.
Sure, and that's what I'm saying is the cost share, should FEMA be able to cover that cost, that's at 2.5 million, which again leaves us a 4.5 balance from a 7 million, and Mr. Carlson had said 4.5 is adequate for either site, whether the lease site or the Guam housing site, and so I'm asking again, do you concur that 4.5 is adequate for either location?
It should be.
Okay. So you're retracting the 7 million that you earlier said that would be adequate?
I would say you're at risk, and the closer you are to 7, the better off, the better.
So 8 or 10 would be even better than 7, right?
Well, I'm not going to go there.
Okay.
But I also know that oftentimes when we estimate, for example, when we estimated school refurbishment for all of our campuses, that estimate was prepared before I got here, but it was based on a real engineering study. They estimated 80 million. The bid came back at 280 million. So, lesson learned.
Yeah. No, I'm just, I mean, we have, again, competing entities. We have, as was spoken about earlier, the hospital in need of infusion of cash as well. And so, yes, of course, what's adequate versus what would be nice to have. Yeah, you'll be more comfortable with 7 than 4. And you'll be very comfortable with 8 or 10. Yeah, but so what's adequate to move forward is, again, as Mr. Carlson had said, 4.5 will be adequate funding. Earlier you said 7. You definitely need 7. Then now you're saying it's doable at 4.5.
I would say that I know and understand that balancing all of these competing needs is a difficult challenge. And that's what this body has to do.
Yeah, that's what we're trying.
If 4.5 will get us there, then 4.5 is what we need. But I'm also
you would prefer 7. You would prefer 7.
Yes.
Sure. And like I said, 8 or 10 is even better than 7, right?
Well, I didn't ask for 8 or 10.
Got it. Anyway, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
You're welcome. Senator Kanata, you are recognized. Oh, Senator Sinagasti, I'm sorry. Senator Kanata, I'm sorry. We wanted to leave you for the last on the first round. Senator Sinagasti, would you like to?
I'm going to yield my time to Senator Kanata.
Okay, thank you. Senator Kanata, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This legislation was proposed and written in July, right before 4th of July. And unfortunately, in that time, we were briefed that there was no money for this school's project manager, construction manager, whatever you want to call it. The legislature has definitely taken a brunt on this school campus. We've cut costs from our branch to assist in the Simon Sanchez High School directly. There's also been numerous bills that have needed to be written to whatever reason to resolve this campus's delay in political purgatory. As a freshman senator, it has been very much my priority and an important position for me to ensure that my school, Simon Sanchez High School, that I graduated from in 2014, which in 2013 was shut down due to its failing campus status. As a lot of my colleagues have asked already, the CRER report shows that there is revenue and unobligated sufficient revenue that can be directed to the Simon Sanchez High School. One of my colleagues stated that this legislation may not be necessary and that we're perhaps wasting time. But as soon as the groundbreakings and ribbon cuttings available, they'll be for the first one on the front line, I'm sure. And I don't need the credit to rebuild my school. I just want the school to be rebuilt so that kids are not suffering for our failure. 10 years ago is when I graduated. The cost of the construction in Chamorro-Lantres in every business has been felt for construction development. And the longer we prolong this bill or this appropriation, then Nani, guess what? It's going to keep going up. It's going to keep inflating. So I commend the previous speaker, vice speaker, regarding the legislations that were passed for the school. I was going to bring that up, but I'm not going to waste my time on that and redirect the conversation. We already know what was discussed earlier. I'm not going to ask the same questions. The money's there. I could make a motion to hear the bill as is, right? Motion the table, what is it called? Call for the previous question, but I'm not doing that motion, so everyone relax. But I am very much tired of having my teachers call me ignorant and wasting people's time. It's very much a very tedious process for legislation to be going through its work. Procurement is one thing, legislative process is also very tedious. And that's why I also mentioned that in previous legislations that be careful what you ask for and be careful what legislation's implemented. Because it can be the consequence of failed projects again. Because we want all of these provision, report. And at the end of the day, we're the ones that are not reporting correctly. We're the ones dropping the ball. So I'm going to stress that I humbly ask for my colleagues' support on this legislation. And it is my hope that we actually groundbreak on this school. And everyone's invited to the groundbreaking whether or not you support the legislation. But I just want you to reflect that in your mind. I'm not trying to make you feel guilty, but I was a student in Simon Sanchez High School. I had no aircon in some of my classrooms, but I never faced the double session challenges. And I'm almost certain a lot of our students out there are really having a tough time learning. Not just in Simon Sanchez High School, there's other schools that are also in this dire circumstance. So, I just wanted to stress that out there that I have no special interest here. My only special interest is to build this school and serve our community better and improve the quality of life our students are going in. Because someone might say that I have special interest, I own the property that is owned by Guam Housing Corporation, or that it belongs to Chamorro-Lantres and I'm taking the whole parcel for myself, or that I own the frickin' road at Hafade, Chalan Escuela.
Senator Cananta, please watch your language, please.
Oh, thank you. So, again, I'm just stressing my request for everyone's support on this legislation. I just want to rebuild this school so that the kids don't have to face the same challenges as the previous generation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Kanata. This concludes the first round. However, we were told that Mr. Carlson would not be able to return after lunch. So I'm going to ask anyone if they should have any questions for Mr. Carlson at this time before we break for lunch. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Carlson? Okay, yep. Speaker, you're recognized.
Yeah, so if we take the $33 million balance that is in the Typhoon Malware account, is that usable for the GMH?
Wait, turn it on.
I can't hear you, sir.
If it's a FEMA-related project, the answer is yes.
Why do you say only FEMA-related projects?
Because that's how you pass the legislation.
What do you mean?
The Typhoon Malware account is for Malware-related expenses and a FEMA match. So if it's a GMH public assistance ticket that gets approved by FEMA, they're more than able to access the funds.
I have the Public Law 3717 and 37-21, and I don't see anything in here that restricts it to FEMA matching only, and that's because that's how we were able to give the $1 million or the $100,000 to each of the mayors, right? And we were giving money to other sources as well, and it lists all kinds of projects that it can be used for, but it doesn't limit it to FEMA match.
The $100,000 that you gave each mayor was to offset the damages in the village caused by malware. And they're supposed to report that to you.
Yeah. No, so it's all malware related, but not subject to FEMA reimbursement, right?
Yes. The FEMA reimbursement was a prerequisite.
I don't see that. Maybe if you could send us something
Not
that...
maybe not for the mayors, but, you know.
No, for the whole law.
We're treating it as if...
You're treating it that way, but the law doesn't, restrict it. So technically, if this money is still available, it's available for the hospital too, right? 33 million?
That's not my interpretation.
Why not?
We've been operating all this time and reserving this money for FEMA-approved matched grants.
Okay, but you just told us that even if we took the 14.3 and let the GDOE use it, there's still 19 million left.
Yes.
So it's left.
But we also have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages of FEMA projects we're still working to clear.
All right, and then I don't know, can you give us then a list that we can review during lunch that shows how much of this 19 million is dedicated to projects that you're still trying to clear or not? Because you said, no, only the GDOE, we should take out the 14, but we should leave the rest of the balance as usable.
I'll have Homeland provide that to you.
So again, yeah, so is there $19 million usable, or like you said, that we could use it for this project because it's a FEMA project, or it's not usable because it's dedicated to those other projects? Which one?
My interpretation, the administration's interpretation, is that this body provided the 10% match to be able to address the FEMA claims, so that an agency that didn't have the wherewithal could still avail of a FEMA grant and not have to worry about scrambling for the match because you guys provided the match money.
All right, no, the question is, when you said there was 19 million still left, even after the 14 million, you said 33 is the balance according to the report. Set aside the 14 million for GDOE projects that are pending, mold mitigation, security fencing. If you put that aside, there's still 19 million. You said out of the 19, we can take the money to be used to lease a temporary Simon Sanchez High School. And I'm asking you,
2.5.
is it available or is it not? Then how do we know it's 2.5 versus the 19 that you told us? That's what I'm asking for. That type of an accounting to tell us, well, is it 19 or is it only 2.5? Because nothing here shows there's only 2.5 left.
For illustrative purposes,
No, I'm just asking.
we used a $25 million proposal currently before FEMA. If, for illustrative purposes, they approve it, we're only required to do the 10% match, 2.5 million.
Right.
That's it.
Right, and you're suggesting we get it out of the 19 million
Yes.
that is still in the Typhoon Malware account.
Yes.
Right, and I'm asking you, how do we know that why can't we use the rest of the 19 million then?
For
If we
what?
can use 2.5 million, why can't we use the rest?
Because FEMA would have approved the project. And then you're if you wanted to change the law and say, okay, I'm going to direct 15 million to, here, here, and here, then you're more than welcome to amend the law, but we're not done with all the claims. We're
Right,
still
so
working
that's all
on
I'm
it.
asking is if you are accounting for the 19 million, if we could just see where that is intended to go. That's what I'm asked for originally. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam
Chair-
Speaker. I'm just going to go, because he has a doctor's appointment. If you don't have anything else, I just want to
I thought
allow
that's after lunch.
Minority
So
Leader.
can we ask questions after lunch?
Yes, after lunch, but he will not be there because he has a doctor's appointment.
Madam Chair?
Minority Leader, did you have a question?
Just on a point of inquiry, if there are no further questions for Superintendent Swanson, I ask that he just be excused for lunch.
No, you know what?
It's up to you, and I'm just checking.
Okay. Dr. Swanson will return at 2:30. He has an appointment at 4 o'clock, a board meeting at 4 o'clock. We'll excuse him at that time. But at this time, I'm just allowing the questions for Lester because he will not be able to return. I will be asking our chair if they can call Director Byrne to come in. Maybe he can take complaint. Oh, he's off island? Okay. Right, just for Lester at this point, because you won't go. Dr. Swenson can return at 2:30 to answer any of our questions. Minority Leader Blas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Carlson, and you say that the 2.5 was for illustrative purposes within the $7 million, and I appreciate that. Now, let's take the illustrative purpose out of the way. Let's just say that FEMA does not approve the 25 or the project, and we have to go with either one of the two other options. Is this now? How does that? This $7 million work?
If there is no FEMA assistance, the $7 million would be woefully insufficient to embark solely on either a leased facility outfitted for classrooms or purchasing the temporary classrooms from off-island, having them fabricated, shipped here, refabricated, all the site work being done. That $7 million will not cut it.
Okay. And so you said the meeting that you're having on Thursday?
We hope it's Thursday.
We hope it's Thursday.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it presumptuous for us right now to have this discussion prior to this discussion on Thursday?
No, because I wanted to remind you guys that the general fund isn't necessary for the FEMA match.
Right, understood.
So that was the whole reason why I thought everybody's going to be happy to see
No,
me.
I apologize if I didn't seem happy elated, but again, it's just that we're throwing millions of dollars around as if it's nothing. I mean, quite honestly, 4.5 versus $7 million. I remember back in the day when we were fighting for $150,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay? And I don't want to get past, go past that. So again, the presumptuous conversation prior to, this conversation would probably be much better off on a Friday after your Thursday meeting, knowing yes or no, if this was to occur. who knows? I mean, like, Mr. Swanson, Dr. Swanson has said, the $7 million, he could use that additional funding for other resources, for other sources. However, just because, it'll save us a measly $2.5 million, no. That's a lot of money. Okay, and so that's, again, my question was basically taking option 3 off the table, what is $7 million? And if the option 3 is, again, I don't know, maybe I'm old school, but if I can save $2.5 million to go elsewhere, then it's a better conversation. Well off. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Yes, 2.5 is a lot of money, especially when the hospital needs it. Other than that, I know that Lester's been very patient with us. He has a doctor's appointment. If there's anyone with just a question, other than that, I'm going to recess. Anybody?
I did. Just wanted to, because I was in the restroom, Mr. Carlson had said something about not requiring the whole $7 million, and they threw out a number of $4 million. If you could just reiterate that for the record.
Yes, Senator Barnett, you're recognized, and Lester.
So the rationale for that, and again, Senator Blas is right. The committee that holds today, hopefully the meeting takes place Thursday. Hopefully they say yes. So my whole thing is, if they say yes, the general fund does not need to come up with the match. So the $7 million request can easily go down to 4.5. I agree that there needs to be additional funding for unforeseen logistical issues with the temporary facility. So I would advocate for $4.5 million, knowing that you have the $2.5 million in the Malware account, should they approve it, to make the match.
Thank you for that, Mr. Carlson, because I think even Superintendent Swanson was a little confused about whether or not DOE needed to have $2.5 million cash on hand, and they don't. This would be covered by the Typhoon Malware Relief Fund.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm just wondering, because I know that one of the big issues where critical funding is needed immediately would be towards school security. So if this whole $7 million is not needed, then I would offer that we maybe move some of this funding over to more pressing needs with school security, Madam Chair. Thank you. Sudas Masi, Mr. Carlson.
You're very welcome, Senator Barnett. That being said, no more other questions. Committee of the Whole is in recess until 2:30.